Okay, if we could get started, please. Great. Thank you. And for several members of the audience, I thank you for your patience. We have a delayed start for the regular meeting. You may have picked up that we had a business license hearing for the LaFon Motel. It went a little longer than we anticipated. But I think we sent a statement to the community that we will not be tolerating substandard conditions or allowing crime. Right. So with that, I will call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of Manchester Springs City Council for October the 5th, 2021. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. The city clerk would go ahead and call the roll.
Just checking our technology here. Okay, council members, Judith Chandler. Present. John Shada. Julie Wolf. Natalie Johnson. Steve Brimner. Mayor Pro Tem. Nancy Fortune. And Mayor John Graham.
Present. Thank you. Okay, council members, I believe you've all had an opportunity to look at the agenda. I would look for a motion approving the agenda.
So moved.
Motion. Is that a second, Councilor Chandler?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay. All in favor say aye. I know you put the mask on and then you don't feel like you have to talk. It's kind of funny. Okay, thanks. Okay. Next item, public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have anyone in the audience who wants to speak to a non-agenda item? Okay, I think not. Okay, thank you. Let's push on to the consent calendar. We have 4 items on the consent calendar tonight. We have the approval of the September 21 regular meeting minutes, the approval of the September 28th special meeting minutes, Hiawatha design contract for the restoration scope services, and the 4th item is approval to purchase a backhoe. I'd entertain a motion to accept and approve the consent calendar.
I move we approve the consent calendar as presented.
I need to request that we remove number 1, however.
Okay, so the request is to remove approval of the September 21 meeting minutes, so we would discuss that next after the consent calendar.
I
Okay.
will amend my motion to remove item 1 from the consent calendar
Okay.
for the discussion.
So I'll second that.
You have a second? Okay. All in favor say aye. Okay. Motion's approved. Next item then would be the approval of the September 21, 2021 regular meeting minutes. Councilor Wolf, you had a concern?
Yes, thank you. Just a minor correction I wanted to make on page 4 of the minutes, of the September minutes.
Okay.
September 21, sorry, minutes. It states, Councilor Wolf asked if it was lawful for presenters to present a PowerPoint to City Council, and if that PowerPoint modifies the interpretation of the ordinance. I believe that it should say, Councilor Wolf asked if it was lawful for the presenters to present a PowerPoint to the City Council since it was not in the packet. There was a whole different person, and I don't recall if it was Natalie or who, asked if the PowerPoint modifies the interpretation of the ordinance. And then I remember Jeff Parker explained in response that only if it's deemed ambiguous. So that would be my request, is to correct that to say, Councilor Wolf asked if it was lawful for presenters to present a PowerPoint to City Council, given that it was not in the packet, period.
Okay. Council, any discussion? Okay, do we have a motion then to accept the minutes as modified. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Apparently not. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, great. We got that tidied up. Great. Okay, presentation. Okay, the moment we all have been waiting for. Presentation in the proposed fiscal year 2022 budget and the 5-year capital improvement plan. Becca, thank you. Of course, this is what we spent a good chunk of Saturday talking about, so.
Exactly, and I don't have a PowerPoint. This presentation is being made to comply with state law, Code CRS 29-1-105, which requires the budget officers to submit the proposed budget to the governing body by October 15th at a regular meeting. So staff presented the budget in depth to council on October 2nd at the budget retreat. And on October 12th, next Tuesday, City Council will be given the opportunity to discuss the budget and seek clarification as needed at the work session. The updated general fund summary, which is part of your packet, has the current forecasted 2022 ending unassigned general fund balance of $4,047,304, which is 32% of the unassigned general fund expenditures. The general fund summary in the budget book on pages 20 through 22 has not yet been updated with the changes that occurred after the numbers were sent to the software company that created the budget book. But the budget book will be updated with these changes before the first reading on November 16th. Now, these changes were presented to you at the budget retreat in the memo, and once again, I've inserted them into this memo, so there shouldn't be any surprises about them. And I was informed of a change earlier today that affects the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority Fund, which means its revenues will now be $1,274,095, and its expenditures will also be that same amount, $1,274,095, instead of $529,000 for both the revenues and expenditures. This is due to higher tax returns, higher tax revenues in 2021, and carryovers from 2021 to 2022. So this change will also be made in the budget book. But at this time, that's the only changes I have. This is not to say there won't be some more changes before that first reading and can even occur at the first reading, preferably not. Hopefully we have it totally nailed down by that time. But like I said, I'm just making this presentation due to state law. We're going to have plenty more time to discuss this. Hopefully you already have some familiarity with it from Saturday, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Becca. Council, do we have questions for Becca at this point? Councilor Wolf?
Yes, Becca, with respect to any specific items that I would like in the budget or for us to be committed to spend in the budget, is that something that you would prefer or that would make more sense to you for us to discuss at first reading as opposed to this evening?
No, I think the presentation is merely just to give you these numbers. I would really think this should be discussed at the work session next week, so that if City Council comes to a consensus about certain changes, they can give us guidance and we can get that in before the first reading. That would be the optimal path forward.
Okay, very good. Then I'll save my comments for next week. Thank you.
Perfect.
Any other questions, Council? Okay, well, no action is required. We have met the state regulations, and we'll have an opportunity to visit this in greater detail next week. So, great. Becca, thank you very much. And you may have noticed in the memorandum that the workload impact on this has exceeded 1,000 hours for city staff. I think we really, the council has a debt of gratitude to you, Becca, and to all the city staff who've worked on it, Denise and Roy. and everyone else, it's been the department heads, yeah, I realize it's a tedious, it's a demanding process, but it's the roadmap that gets us through to the next year. So that's a huge chunk of work, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's definitely a group effort.
Teamwork is important. Great. Okay, so the next item is Proclamation for Indigenous People Day. And let's see, I believe Mayor Pro Tem is willing to read it.
Thank you. City of Manitou Springs Proclamation Number 1121, proclamation recognizing Indigenous Peoples Day in Manitou Springs. Whereas the Indigenous people, the first humans to frequent this area, held a special reverence for this valley and ascribed sacred qualities to the mineral springs for which the city became famous. Whereas these Indigenous people observed a convention of peace and friendship when visiting the springs, hostilities and tribal rivalries were suspended. And whereas the city pride and sense of community enjoyed by Manitou Springs residents is a culmination of many factors, including the deep roots of our history, and whereas the recognition of the importance of the Indigenous peoples and their contributions to the human story is a fundamental facet of that history, and whereas we share with Indigenous people a sense of stewardship for the environment, and we find wisdom in their example, and whereas we wish to honor the Indigenous peoples, to learn from them, and to have them share with us the great beauty of this valley and the mineral springs. Now therefore be it resolved that the Manitou Springs City Council does hereby proclaim the second Monday in October to henceforth be known as Indigenous Peoples Day in Manitou Springs. We call upon our citizens to recognize and celebrate the culture and contribution of Indigenous peoples in our community. Dated this 5th day of October 2021 in the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, Mayor John Graham, Manitou Springs City Council.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And just a quick commercial appeal announcement. We will be celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day on Sunday with a little ceremony out here in the Mansions Park. That'll be from noon to 2 o'clock. We expect to have representatives from the Cheyenne and the Lakota tribes, possibly the Ute. We will have ceremonial drumming. There won't be any food or sales or anything like that. It'll be a fairly low-key first effort in trying to recognize this. So if you would like to attend, that would be great. It's open to the public. Okay, business items. First reading of ordinance number 1221, an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 10.04 of the City of Manitou Springs Municipal Code to adopt by reference the Model Traffic 2020 edition with amendments and providing penalties for violations thereof. Mr. Parker, I think I'd ask you for a little bit of direction here to kind of explain the history on this.
Thank you. Thanks for that. I always forget this. I've never been accused of having a soft voice, so I always forget to turn this thing on. I apologize. The city currently has adopted the 2010 Model Traffic Code. So it's been 10 years since you've updated the Model Traffic Code. Model Traffic Code is adopted by, or basically developed by CDOT. And it's generally adopted by most local governments and municipalities in some form or another. There was a 2018 version that was prepared a few years ago, and it had a number of possibly really errors and inconsistencies and problems. And so most jurisdictions in Colorado did not adopt that version. The 2020 version basically fixed the errors in the 2018, and then the point of it is to basically update traffic rules for local jurisdictions that are consistent with state law changes. And so since 2010, there have been a number of changes, and there's primarily new provisions dealing with electric vehicles, e-scooters, e-bikes, et cetera. Those are in the 2020 Model Traffic Code that weren't in the 2010 Model Traffic Code. And so we have not done a point-by-point red line through the traffic codes to compare 2010 and 2020. We could do that if you wanted all the details, but I can tell you that most jurisdictions are now pretty comfortable with the 2020 Model Traffic Code as being consistent with state traffic laws and are adopting it. The version that you have here in front of you, we included some amendments to the 2020 code to be consistent with your municipal code and what the town wanted to do with the 2010 Model Traffic Code, just to have some basic provisions that are similar to our new muni codes. Everything's consistent. And one of the things we just recently did at the direction of, I guess it was your parking manager who I guess was involved in a work session with you all is to adopt the optional provision that allows for bicycles to safely roll through stop signs and to safely stop and then proceed through red lights. And so that's been added as another provision that amends the 2020 model traffic code, so you have your own local version that allows for that, and state law allows for that too. So that's a quick summary of the 2020 code that we're presenting to you. And if you wanted a ton of details about exactly which provisions were changed, we could certainly provide you with that, but we did not spend the time and money to do that for you at this point.
I think what you provided is sufficient and very serviceable in my mind. We'll see how council thinks here in a minute. I do see a few people in the audience who I think probably came for this topic. Carl, you were one of the presenters a couple of weeks ago. Do you have anything you'd like to add at this point? No, you see none? Okay. No, okay, great. Chief, any thoughts? Okay. Kevin? Okay, keeping life simple, that's good. Okay, well, council, would entertain a motion?
Reference the Model Traffic Code 2020 edition with amendments and providing penalties for violations thereof on first reading, and set a public hearing for October 19th, 2021 at 6 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Natalie. Any further discussion? Okay, council, let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Great, motion passes unanimously. Super, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that takes us to our last item, discussion of policy statement, letter to city employees. And there were several variants provided in the council packet, one of which is submitted by Councilor Chandler, just in time for last week's meeting, but we didn't really get into it. I guess I'd like to kind of get a sense of what council's pleasure is. Me personally, I could accept Councilor Chandler's letter. I think probably we've delayed things long enough, but it's better to do it right rather than do it fast. Julie?
I could accept Counselor Chandler's letter too, if we could modify by just adding the preliminary paragraph that was in the mayor's revised form. And I don't have that right in front of me at this moment, but it's the one that says, we sent you this memo, it said it was from city council, it really wasn't approved by all of us, so here's what we do agree about, or something to that effect that you wrote, John, that I thought was fine, because otherwise it sounds as if we're not retracting anything that was said previously, and that's a problem for me. Otherwise, I'm very comfortable with what Councilor Chandler has done here with the revision.
Okay. And it's in our council package. You may be able to read that first paragraph. I do have it up on my screen. I can read it. It'd be the first paragraph that I had in my revised version. You want me to read it? Okay. All right. So this is the one that I did. And what Julie is asking is that this paragraph be prepended to Julie's letter. Judith's letter, excuse me. Amazing how we behave once we haven't had dinner. Okay, we'll get to that pretty quick. The following is a policy statement from the Manitou Springs City Council regarding city employee relations, work environment, and means of addressing complaints and concerns. Note that a previous unapproved letter was shared with city staff on Friday, September 10th. Following additional deliberation, council is now issuing this approved version. We apologize for any confusion for the previous letter may have caused. Judith, would you accept that?
I absolutely do accept that. I think it's a good change, and I also just wanted to say to council that my rationale for my approach to the letter was to just, I really feel that it's council's role to really not really have any opinions necessarily on particular people or personalities, but more look at the process in place. And because, people come and go, but we should have a strong process in place that we support. So just so you know, that was kind of where I was coming from when I wordsmithed, Mayor Graham's original document. So
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess since we've taken it this far, it wouldn't hurt to be formal and accept this via motion, so. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I move we accept Counselor Chandler's version of the letter inserting Mayor Graham's first paragraph onto the letter with all of our signature blocks on it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second. So a motion and a second, and this would include us all signing the letter. So if that's agreeable. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, motion's passed. I guess Judith and I will work out the mechanics of getting the letter together, and then I would expect we'd have it at next week's council meeting so it can be signed. We'll have the city clerk do it, excuse me. That's right, that's what she gets paid for.
Oh, can we sign it at the work session so that we don't have to postpone it another 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, I was thinking next week, so we'll have it
Okay.
ready for next week.
Oh,
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you, we got that done.
Judy wanted to speak.
I'm sorry.
Judy was going to speak.
Yeah, Judy?
Will do.
Can I just say, Lisa's been the one that's been working this for you. So if you went Lisa or if you went city clerk, either one, she's got all the Word documents. So however you want to direct it, we can send everything to city clerk if you would like.
Okay, we can send it to the city clerk, and you can all work it out as to the best way to do it. Okay, great. Okay, it's time to receive or act on the city council correspondence. Anybody have anything? Julie?
I received another, I'm going to look here and try to read at least from part of this text that I got. There apparently is ongoing problems up Ruxton and in particular at the corner of Pilot Knob with dangerous conditions. This is from Brian Aller, who lives up there, and he says at 9:45 p.m., I've just counted 15 cars that have gone by in the last 15 minutes. Usually there are dozens of cars at all times lined up on the street. Vehicles often come down Ruxton in excess of 35 to 40 miles an hour. Whoops. Sorry, it just blipped out on me. Every day, starting at approximately 5 a.m., there is a constant stream of drivers, often blaring music and speeding. My neighbor is currently drafting a complaint. He has experienced multiple occurrences, as have I, where he was concerned about his safety simply exiting his vehicle. His dog and my children have been nearly struck by speeding vehicles on the street at that curve. Additionally, drivers have been very insulting and disrespectful about these occurrences. The pavement is eroding. Our parking spots are inaccessible. My car bottoms out because of the erosion on the road. Additionally, non-residents continue to park in residential spots, and parking enforcement does not ticket these people as frequently as they should. I've observed them repeatedly driving past violators talking about code enforcement without enforcing the laws. I've pointed violations out to code enforcement frequently without any action. This road has become a death trap, and it's only a matter of time before someone is injured or worse. I guess I'll bring this up again at the budget meeting when we talk about the budget next week, but this is a big problem, and I'm not comfortable waiting until the entire Ruxton corridor is redone under the master plan. It sounds very hazardous. So that was a concern that was brought to my attention, and that's all I have.
I guess I might suggest if you could forward that email to the city administrator, perhaps we could take some prompt action. We could look into see what we can do. Sounds like that's a long list, so it doesn't sound like we'll get everything, but we could try to make things better as soon as possible. Who else? Who else has anything? Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a reminder that in addition to the event on Sunday in Mansions Park, on Saturday, there's ribbon cutting for the new improved west end of Soda Springs Park from, I believe it's 11 to 1. There'll be lots of games and activities, particularly for young or for children. And it should be a fun event. There's just a lot of activities planned
And food.
and food. So come on down. And
What-
several
what-
of you participated in the planning of Soda Springs Park. So I think it'll be just a nice time. And the weather's supposed to be good.
What time is the ribbon cutting again?
I'm pretty sure it's at 11 to 1, yeah.
Counselor Chandler?
Well, I just wanted to thank Deputy Administrator Roy Cheney and everyone at Public Works for following through and striping Becker's Lane and putting the mile-an-hour signs. I think it's already starting to work. The neighbors are thrilled and just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you again.
Anyone else? Natalie?
Just a reminder that the candidate forum is on Monday at 6 o'clock at the Briarhurst.
Thank you. I guess that's it. So let's have the city administrator's report. Roy?
Yeah, thank you very much. There is still signs we have to put up on Becker's, so that we still have one more project out there, but we are glad that it's working. A couple other striping projects that will be starting soon. We're trying to beat the winter weather. Will be the Ruxton corner there, the blind corner. We're going to be putting a crosswalk or a cross trail on the side there and move the center line out to give more room for pedestrians around that blind corner. El Paso will be next for striping, and then rear diagonal parking and Memorial will be done next after that. So we are moving forward, trying to get this done before the winter season. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise?
Roy, I have a quick question. I can't remember, did a Animal Crossing sign go up near the pool, or?
Yes, so by the Sinclair gas station and then the hotel there's a Animal Crossing sign. And I do have 2 turkey signs that we'll put up on Crystal Hills Boulevard. Thank you.
In time for Thanksgiving, huh? Okay. Denise?
The only thing I have is I encourage you to walk by and see the turtle painting. It is pretty amazing. They will do yoga at 10 o'clock on Friday, and then a dance music thing at 11, and then the ribbon cutting at 12. And anybody who brings a pair of scissors is going to partake in the ribbon cutting. So it's not just certain people, it's everyone, because it's a community-wide event. So encourage you, if you can come by, to do such. And they're pretty creative, and been, I think, posted on the front page of the Gazette, the Independent, the news has been out, and they've had their turtle out to show that too. Their big turtle that weighs, I don't know how much, so encourage you to come by.
Great, thank you. I think that concludes tonight's business. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, in a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, great, thanks. Dinner time.
It feels like it's on midnight right now, you know? It's like, remember we used to start meetings at 7 o'clock? We should start at 7, right? We should. We used to, like, it was,